Well, thank you, Frank, and I promise you the best thing I could do right now would be to sit down. I can't make anything better or even come close to what he's already said about me, but I am afraid that like the rabbi who spoke earlier, who incidentally could give preaching lessons to any Baptist preacher on the planet, I also bring you bad news and even worse news. The bad news is I did not come to give a speech tonight. I did not know I was going to give one. And the worst news is I'm going to give one anyway. So my promise to you is, like Henry VIII said to his fourth wife, I won't keep you long. But, you know, if I could just for a moment, I know that the best thing to do is to keep people laughing, and they'll say you did a good job no matter what the absence of substance was in anything that you said. But I want you to know that all of you give me a profound hope. I know that there's always something wonderful and exhilarating about hearing your own convictions fall from another person's lips, and that happens all the time when Frank Gaffney speaks. I think that while he is going to be given plaudits from so many, I just want you to know, Frank, I think you're one of the greatest heroes of freedom in America today. I really believe that. And I'll tell you that there's so many things that we have the privilege of doing in the Congress right now that we wouldn't be doing without Frank. And whatever, I don't know all the supporters or all the issues here that are on the table tonight, but I want you to know that all of you are having a profound impact in the Congress simply because you're supporting this man and this good organization. And I see so many faces that I wish I could say good things about. I see Barbara back here and Janine back here, and of course I had lunch with one of the greatest strategic minds in the country today, Rachel Ehrenfeld, and I just see so many warriors here that it's impossible to name all of you, and I'm embarrassed that I even tried to start. But you really are in such an important sense. You're really the hope of national security for this country. And I know that there are so many issues, and believe me, children's issues, what brought me to Congress in a sense. But anyone who has just a cursory understanding of the circumstances that we face in the world today recognize that as the threat to our security has increased under the Obama administration, our ability to meet that threat has decreased significantly. And I can say that we're going to touch on a couple of issues, but they're really, if I wanted to put it simply, if I wanted to say the challenges to our national security in one word, and then I could say it in two words. In one word, it would be Obama. In two words, it would be Barack Obama. Because I will say to you that you cannot have a country of the type we have be truly secure when the commander-in-chief seems to simply either misunderstand the threat or is willing to sell the future of this country's national security for short-term political gain. I know that even touching on some of the issues tonight are so common to all of you. I know you already know these things. This organization has been profoundly involved in the issue of dealing with electromagnetic pulse. And I won't try to expand on it greatly, but I will say to you that you're having an effect because the Critical Infrastructure Protection Act will very likely pass out of the Homeland Security Committee next week. And then it has a very good chance of passing over into the Senate and being hotlined and then sent to the President. So, and I can say to you, your organization has had a big impact on that. Now, our hope is, and so many people in this room have tried to help, that we can keep the industry from watering it down to the extent that it would undermine the significance of it. But, we just, over at the National Defense University, we just translated here several months ago the Iranian military doctrine. And in that doctrine, they emphasize the importance to any civilized society, especially superpowers, of its electric grid, because they understand that apart from that, or with the sudden interruption of that the aftermath would see society tear itself apart. And you all understand the scenarios. I don't need to repeat them. But they mention EMP as an offensive weaponized capability in that military doctrine 22 times. And this is Iran, ladies and gentlemen. And you know there are only two components to every military threat. The first is intent and the second is capacity. And if Iran hasn't demonstrated her intent at this point, then I don't think any reasonable observer could blame anything that they do on them. We are in a very significant situation, and we need to protect this country from that threat because it is an invitation to someone to exploit it. And all through history, whenever there was an identifiable threat, it was nearly always exploited by a committed enemy. And we cannot let that happen. And I'm committed to move in that direction as hard as I possibly can, and I thank you for being behind us. Just two other quick issues. We're very fortunate in the Armed Services Committee here. About a month ago, my Chief of Staff, Jonathan Hayes, is here tonight, and we were fortunate to be able to offer an amendment in my office that prevailed, and it will give direct military support to the Kurds fighting ISIS in the country. Now, ironically, this administration is doing everything they can to defeat it in the Senate. And I suppose, I know that some of you do not trust this president. But no, wait, I think you misjudge him. I trust him implicitly to do the very worst thing he can think of. And therein lies the challenge that we have. We have to recognize this president for who he is and recognize that he is going to do the things that sometimes are antithetical to the national security of this country simply because he has a completely different worldview and a completely different goal for the United States of America. And I do not think he recognizes it as the gift of God to the whole world and to all of humanity that it is. And so consequently, we should trust him to do these things and should not somehow think that he is going to change his mind at the last minute. So we're going to have to fight every inch of the way for the next year and a half. I know you all understand that as dangerous as ISIS is, the last point I make is that it is very serious in its intent. But what would really make jihad dangerous to this world would be if nuclear weapons falls into the hands of the lunatics in Tehran. And I will tell you that is becoming a more likely outcome than it ever has before. And whatever the danger is of having to prevent that from occurring, whatever the cost might be to America to prevent Iran from gaining nuclear weapons, it will pale in insignificance compared to allowing Iran to have nuclear weapons. If they do, your children and mine will step into the shadow of nuclear terrorism, and we will have failed the test of our generation. Now, I know that those are all happy thoughts. So let me just tell you, as I began tonight, that all of you give me hope. And I really believe there is hope. I know that the challenges that we face in jihad are very daunting. I remember the words of Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah. He said, "We have discovered how to hit the Jews where they are most vulnerable. The Jews love life. So that's what we will take from them. We will win because they love life and we love death." And that is a formidable, terrifying ideology that should make all of us who hold to this notion of doing unto others as we would have them do unto us very concerned about the challenges that they present. But I would suggest to you that they've done two things for us. Number one, they have clearly identified the sides. They've helped us understand who's on which side here. They've clarified it for us. Only if God would just help the media be able to disseminate that a little better, it would be great. But the second thing they've done is they have failed and misunderstood the real equation. Because all through history, even though for a time tyrants seem to prevail, In the end, they've always failed because they overlooked one thing. It was those people who did love life, who loved their families, who loved the miracle that God gave them of human freedom and life itself, enough to stand up and fight for it and to be willing to stand against the malevolent and even give their own lives for the sake of people they don't even know. Like the Marine that came up here. I got to be careful. If I talk about children in the military, I always get a little bit emotional. But he is the guy that carries the freedom on his shoulders. People like me talk about it. People like me talk about it. But as the poet said, you and I sleep safe in our beds tonight because rough men stand ready to visit violence on those who would do us harm. But I would suggest to you that we have to remember that it is those who did love life, those who were loved other people's lives more than their own, that they're ones that caused freedom to prevail in the world or in America, and hopefully someday a light that will cast itself across every lonely face, every lost, every broken, every confined soul on this planet. They are the hope that we have, and that is something that we need to hold on to. So the terrorists have overlooked that. And all through history they've done that. And I was very touched, and it's my last word to you. When the rabbi talked about how those in the Holocaust had to face such tragedy, how they overcame and how they didn't let hate completely engulf them, that even though they were a people that had every right to give up and just hate the world and be done, after the Holocaust, they got their revenge by simply, as the poet said, living. They dried their eyes, and they looked up again, and they began to build. And they built a nation, and they built a community, and they built a force in the world, and today the Nazis are gone, and the Jews and Israel remains. And so, when things look a little bad, when things look a little bad, you just remember they looked a little bad when this country started out too. When they signed the Declaration of Independence, it looked like, oh boy, we've done it now, haven't we? And Thomas Jefferson, they say, was very morose and very concerned because he thought, well, this is going to mean the end of all of us. But they had the courage to do that. And the man named John Page said to him, he said, but do you not think for a moment that the race goes not always to the strong, nor the race goes not only to the swift, or the battle to the strong. But do you not think that there is an angel that rides in the whirlwind and directs this storm? And I want you to know, I believe tonight, and I'm grateful beyond words, there's such gratitude in my heart, that by the grace of God, the God that gave America to the world is the God that will sustain us in the world. And not only will America be free, and not only will the light of God's peace shine down on the streets of Jerusalem forever, but by the grace of God, we will see that light extended to all mankind. Let's do our best. God bless you. Good night.